motor mount replacement on a 2013 Nissan Sentra SR. First, I used a 16mm to break this first bolt, but not to remove it all the way, just to loosen it. For the next 3 bolts on this motor mount, it's going to need a 13mm socket to get on there. And once again, we're loosening it, but not taking them all the way out. The reasoning behind not taking all of them out is because then the motor mount will be released from the motor and the motor gonna drop, and that's gonna mess stuff up. Now we're gonna take our jack with our wooden plank, block, whatever, put it on top of there, not to damage anything under the car, and I'm gonna place the jack under the motor. But later on, I will have to shift it closer to the motor mount side, just to make it easier to remove the motor mount and put a new one on there. But we're gonna be jacking it up, not all the way, just enough to where it touched the mount, so when we remove the motor mount, it doesn't fall, it doesn't drop a whole lot. And then we're going to move it later, just so we could fit them bolts in line with the new motor mount. Somehow I missed taking off the first bolt, but you're gonna need an 18mm for these 2 bolts right here. We're gonna take off this part next. It's a part of the motor mount, and remove it. Now we can go back to removing the bolts on this motor mount, but like I mentioned earlier, we were struggling with the weight of it. So the weight of it was making the bolts be misaligned after I took one of them out. So I put one of them back in and had to pull it towards me to realign all the other screws, take those out, and then take the final bolt out last. And to get one of the bolts out, we had to readjust the jack, lower it, put it closer to the motor mount side, like I said, just to get the last bolt out that's closer to the windshield of the car. There's a black piece that's connected to the motor mount that holds 3 bolts. You're gonna need a 16mm socket for it. You can't see it in the video, but they have one on the left side where I'm at currently, and then 2 on the opposite end. When you look at your new motor mount, see how that is. It'll be easier for you to tell where your bolts are located at. But I'm just breaking them first, then loosening them. Appreciate it. See if you can We had to jack up the motor a little bit so the motor would be even with the motor mount. We would start the bolts and get them locked down and tightened. This time I used the gun with a 13mm socket to put the 3 bolts back on, going over it about 2, maybe 3 times, making sure the bolts was tight. Then grab my 16mm to grab the other one, the last bolt that go on this motor mount. I started all the bolts by hand, by the way, on that motor mount. Do the same right here. Start the bolts by hand, the 3 bolts, 16mm with my hand first, or the ratchet. Then switched over to the gun, tighten it up, went over about 2 to 3 times just to make sure it was tight. Now we're gonna put our motor mount arm in. Make sure you put the side with the arrow on the top side. That means it's good. And we're gonna start with the bolt that goes into the mount, because the bolt that goes into the frame of the car closer to the windshield, it isn't lined up correctly. So we're gonna start the other bolt first, then push the motor towards the windshield so we can start the other bolt that goes into the frame.
Okay, there we go.
Now that both of our bolts are started, we're gonna take our 18mm and just tighten both of these bolts up.
Huh? Alright, go ahead. It's good. It's sitting still. going on with the camera, bro?